get that published instead. That was easier than having a popular blog. I'm going to talk to you today about a bit about social media, a bit about saving the world, and I'm going to start though with a little bit about humanity. I'd like to introduce to you a concept, a very simple concept, that we have more than one brain in our head. Some of you will be familiar with this, some not. We have evolved as a species to have a very, very fast reaction system called the limbic system. Who knows what that is? A few people. There's this part of the brain called the amygdala, and it deals with all of the hormones that make you deal with fight, flight, or the other F word that I can't say. Everything you do and think about, all your altruistic impulses, all of your work, all of your productivity, is not governed by this system pretty much, unless you're into extreme sports. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your viewpoint, evolution has evolved this system to completely override the smarter part of our brain. So you have your cortex, your higher brain functions that includes your altruism and everything smart about you, and you have your amygdala. And the amygdala has first say, and it's faster than your cortex, no matter how smart you are. Why is this so? For a very good evolutionary reason. All those humans in the past that when attacked by a saber-toothed tiger had a deep philosophical thought, well, their tasty genome is no longer with us. That means your fight-flight response overrides your thought process. Why am I bringing this up? Because I think it's relevant for a whole lot about social media. It isn't going to be the only point I make, but it's just something I'd like you to consider. Because here's the killer piece. Your amygdala cannot tell the difference between an attack on your person and an attack on your point of view. Think about that for a moment. All the times that you have felt threatened, the smartest part of you has likely been shut down for a period of time. And if you look at the way people argue, especially in cyberspace, if you were to sit them down in a neutral environment and read them back those arguments, they would wonder who the heck it was that was speaking. Because the way your amygdala talks, the way your limbic system influenced brain talks, is very different to the way your cortex talks. Your cortex is engaged by language. And it is possible through language to calm down your amygdala, to reset yourself, to calm down another person. So language is this enormous power to turn us from fools and beasts into smarter, wiser, friendlier, more altruistic beings. In fact, I would say that language is one of the few things that can do this, if not the only thing. And so it behooves us to be really smart with our language. Now, if you can be really smart with your language, you can achieve a hell of a lot, provided you don't care who gets the credit. I particularly don't care who gets the credit, so I'm trying to achieve a lot of things. But language comes in many forms. And information that comes in, or data, is the most basic form. And if you imagine a continuum like those, with data in the middle, you have data, and then if you process that data, you get information. And if you process it a little bit more, you might get knowledge. And if you act on that knowledge and get success, and you iterate enough, you might actually get wisdom. On the other hand, if you take that data and you get confused by it, and you allow yourself to become afraid, then you get a whole lot of lies creep in, and you end up with bollocks. One of the unfortunate things about human beings is that we find any part of that scale potentially interesting, and we will call any part of that scale truth or the truth, depending on how it suits us. I think it's relatively obvious that if you're on that scale, the wisdom end of the scale versus the bollocks end of the scale, where I am right now, and probably will stay for the rest of the time, is actually the thing to aspire to. One of the things I particularly loved about some of the previous presentations, one thing that I'm very interested in, is the idea of curation. Because down here at the bollocks end, there's a hell of a lot of noise. And unfortunately, a lot of the wisdom end gets confused down here in the noise. It's overwhelmed. And there's this wonderful thing that you can do. You can go and spelunk in this place called the internet, using your wisdom, using some neutrality, and you can find these little other pieces of wisdom. You can slowly drag them up the chain, and you can display them as curated information. Now, what's the difference between wisdom that's uncurated and wisdom that's curated? I'll tell you in one word: interesting. If you, as a curator, can take something that is prosaic, or that's data, or that's stupid, and you can find the wisdom in it, and then you can combine it with interesting, that is the secret to transmitting any message. That is the secret to bringing wisdom to the forefront. And that is where I think most of the world's future money is going to be made, one way or another, is a combination of being interesting and being satisfying. Because one of the things that we also forget is that when you're trying to be interesting, you look like an idiot. It is only if you are genuinely interesting and satisfying that you have some chance of getting through the noise, that you have some chance of delivering an experience that is good for people, that is going to spread. There are a whole lot of unsatisfactorily interesting things going on. And I'm going to endeavour to show a couple of videos of a few things and some progressions on that in a minute. The other thing that I want you to consider while you're listening and while you're looking at all this is that it is possible to be wise. You all know how to do it. It's possible to engage with people in a wiser way. And the number one way of telling that you're not being wise is that you're afraid, or you're pissed off, or you're euphoric. People in those three states tend to be at the mercy of their limbic system. They do not tend to be using their cortex. And if you can catch yourself in those states, and you can return yourself with language to a more neutral state, wisdom is actually there for your taking. Now, not only am I a failed blogger, but I'm not